Frankenstein.
You're putting me on.
No, it's pronounced Frankenstein.
Do you also say Frodwick?
No, Frederick.
Well, why isn't it Frodwick Frankenstein?
It isn't, it's Frederick Frankenstein.
I see.
You must be Igor.
No, it's pronounced Igor.
But they told me it was Igor.
Well, they were wrong then, weren't they?
Of course, I'm sure we'll get along splendidly. Oh, sorry, I don't mean to embarrass you, but I'm a rather brilliant surgeon. Perhaps I could help you with that hump.
What hump?
Shh, it's the film flavors.
Hey guys, I'm Chris.
Hey everybody, I'm Robert.
And we are the Film Flamers.
That's right. Continuing our horror comedy month with our jaunt into Mel Brooks' films, or more importantly, his genre spoofs. And we are here, finally, to talk about a movie that I had never seen, that in the very first year of our podcasts, when we were counting down our favorite horror comedies, Chris exclaimed that I simply must watch Young Frankenstein.
And wasn't it on high on my list, like number one?
Yeah, it was super high on the list. And so here we are to discuss Young Frankenstein, which is a 1974 American comedy horror film directed by Mel Brooks. The screenplay was written by Brooks and Gene Wilder. Wilder also starred in the lead role as the title character, a descendant of the infamous Victor Frankenstein. Peter Boyle portrayed the monster. The film co-stars Teri Garr, Cloris Leachman, Marty Feldman, Madeline Kahn, Kenneth Mars, Richard Haydn, and Gene Hackman, R.I.P.
For all of them.
Oh my God! Everyone in this movie is dead.
That's true.
That's sad. Wait, is Peter Boyle dead?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
all of these people are dead.
Rip et al.
Most recently, Gene Hackman.
That's right.
The film is a parody of the classic horror film genre, in particular, the various film adaptations of Mary Shelley's 1818 novel Frankenstein, or the modern Prometheus, produced by Universal Pictures in the 1930s. Much of the lab equipment used as props was created by Kenneth Strickfaden for the original 1931 film, and to help evoke the atmosphere of the earlier film, Brooks shot the picture entirely in black and white, a rarity in the 1970s, and employed a 1930s style opening credits and scene transitions such as iris outs, wipes, and fades to black. The film also features period score by Brooks' longtime composer, John Morris.
Okay, listeners. For what we're about to see next, we must enter quietly into the realm of genius. This is Young Frankenstein.
Frankenstein!
It's coming from the deep, dark recesses of the mind of Mel Brooks. I love him. Young Frankenstein!
Life, you hear me? Give my creation life!
Sky means business.
Starring Gene Wilder as Dr. Frankenstein.
That's Frankenstein.
Peter Boyle as the monster.
Wow!
Marty Feldman as Igor.
My grandfather used to work for your grandfather.
I'm sure we'll get along splendidly. Oh!
Cloris Leachman as Frau Blucher. And Madeline Kahn as Elizabeth.
What are you going to do to me? I'm not afraid of you.
Kill the monster!
See Mel Brooks' Young Frankenstein.
Yes, I think we could all use a good laugh.
But don't see it alone. Don't miss Young Frankenstein, personally directed by Mel Blazing Saddles Brooks, in black and white. No offense.
In the early 20th century America, lecturing physician Victor Frankenstein, played by Gene Wilder, is desperate to separate himself from his family tree, especially his grandfather, Victor Frankenstein, the infamous mad scientist hell-bent on creating life through reanimation. He pronounces his name Frankenstein and shuts down any conversation about his family's past. But this all changes when he inherits the family castle in Transylvania. He leaves his fiancée, Elisabetta, played by Madeline Kahn, and travels to Europe to assume ownership. At the train station, Frederick meets Igor, played by Marty Feldman, his servant, and whose own grandfather previously worked for Victor during his mad scientist days. Igor tells Frederick that his name is pronounced Igor, and having gotten the matter pronunciation settled, traveled to the castle with Inga, played by Teri Garr, an attractive young woman who is to be his assistant. Arriving at the castle, the group is greeted by Frau Blücher. Nee! Thank you. Played by Cloris Leachman, a dour, intimidating housekeeper who looks like she keeps dark secrets.
Sorry.
The first night in the castle, Frederick hears mysterious music playing. This guy's from everywhere. He and Inga follow the music to a secret corridor that leads to his grandfather's laboratory. They find his private journals, and Frederick resolves to resume his grandfather's research and reanimate the dead. He and Igor steal the body of a recently executed criminal who was large in stature. Woof. Igor, tasked with stealing the brain of a deceased scientist and saint, inadvertently grabs an abnormal brain, which Frederick unknowingly transplants into the corpse. We've all been there. The group successfully reanimates the corpse, who becomes frightened by Igor lighting a match. He attacks Frederick and nearly strangles him before being sedated. Unaware of the monster's existence, the townsfolk meet to discuss the dangers of having Frankenstein back amongst them. Fearing that he will continue his grandfather's work, they send Inspector Kemp, played by Kenneth Mars, to visit Frederick. Frederick assures the inspector that he has no intention of following in his family's mad footsteps. Returning to the lab, Frederick discovers Frau Blücher releasing the monster. She reveals her deep love for his grandfather. The monster is calmed by violin music, and that she planned the events that led to the monster's creation. The monster, frightened by sparks, escapes the castle. Roaming the countryside, the monster encounters a little girl to play with him and a blind Herman monk, played by Gene Hackman, who desperately wants a friend, although he frightens the monster away when he lights his finger on fire. Frederick recaptures the monster and locks himself in a room with it. He calms the monster's rage and flattery and a promise to guide him to success, finally embracing his heritage and being a Frankenstein no longer. In a theater filled with prominent scientists, Frederick unveils his creation and displays that it can follow simple commands. To further prove his point, he and the monster perform a show-stopping musical number, but the monster becomes frightened when the stage light explodes. He charges the crowd as they pelt him with vegetables. The monster is captured and chained by the police. Back in the laboratory, Frederick and Inga consummate their feelings for each other, but while in the midst of afterglow, Frau Blücher informs them that Elizabeth is arriving at any moment. Elizabeth is captured by the monster and falls in love with him after the pair have wild and satisfying intercourse. Frederick has concocted a plan. He lures the monster back to the castle with music and begins a procedure to transfer some of the brain and intelligence from himself to eat. The townsfolk, angry at the monster's existence, form a mob and storm the castle, but arrive just as the procedure is completed. The monster, now stable and intelligent, placates and reasons with the mob, who, along with Inspector Kemp, give it a warm reception. Sometime later, Frederick and Inga are wed, and Elizabeth marries the now sophisticated monster. While in bed with Frederick, Inga inquires about what Frederick received during the transference. Frederick growls wordlessly like his monster and embraces Inga for a night of passion, while Igor plays the violin from the roof. The end.
Bravo.
That was horrible.
No, that was amazing.
It was an abortion of accents.
I'm just like, you have the good German cadence because he's like, Frederick!
There's a little French and weirdness stuck in there too.
I love it. It's all European. You are an amalgam of Europe.
Yes, I am.
You
really.
are. Young Frankenstein was released on December 15th, 1974, and would go on to become a commercial hit, earning $86.2 million against a budget of roughly $2.8 million, which is something like 30 times the budget.
That's impressive.
Yeah, and in today's money, I was trying to look at the inflation calculator while doing these notes, and it's something fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
1974 money.
Made like $1 billion.
Yeah, it was like $1 billion movie.
Yeah. So Young Frankenstein holds 95% on Rotten Tomatoes with an audience score at 92%. The site's consensus reads, quote, "Made with obvious affection for the original, Young Frankenstein is a riotously silly spoof featuring a fantastic performance by Gene Wilder."
Vincent Canby of the New York Times called the film Mel Brooks' funniest, most cohesive comedy to date, adding it would be misleading to describe Young Frankenstein, written by Mr. Wilder and Mr. Brooks, as astoundingly witty, but it is a great deal of low fun of the sort that Mr. Brooks specializes in. Roger Ebert gave the film a full 4 stars, calling it Brooks' most disciplined and visually inventive film. It also happens to be very funny. His friend Gene Siskel gave the film 3 stars out of 4 and wrote, "Part homage and part send up. Young Frankenstein is very funny in its best moments, but they're all too infrequent." Variety declared, "The screen needs one outrageously funny Mel Brooks film each year, and Young Frankenstein is an excellent follow-up for the enormous audiences that howled for much of 1974 at Blazing Saddles."
Okay. Charles Champlin of the Los Angeles Times praised the film as a likable, unpredictable blending of slapstick and sentiment. Gary Arnold of the Washington Post, who disliked Blazing Saddles, reported being equally untickled with Young Frankenstein and wrote that Wilder and Brooks haven't dreamed up a funny plot. They simply rely on old movie plots to get them through a rambling collection of scene parodies and a more or less constant stream of puns, double entendres, and other verbal rib pokers and thigh slappers.
That's what a spoof is.
That's the fucking point. Tom Milne of the UK's The Monthly Film Bulletin wrote in a mixed review that all too often, Brooks resorts to the most cliched sort of carry-on smut. Don't even know. And criticized Marty Feldman's grotesquely unfunny mugging.
Tom Milne doesn't know what he's talking about. Carry On is some British TV series that was like innuendous,
Okay.
back in the day.
What do you think he means by grotesquely unfunny mugging?
I think that he's being rude to Marty Feldman.
That's what I think he is too.
And I think that he's incredibly wrong, which I'm sure we'll get into when we talk about the cast.
Yeah.
The film did accrue some accolades, though. At the Academy Awards, it was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Sound.
Interesting, yeah. Golden Globes, it was nominated for Best Comedy Actress for Cloris Leachman and Best Supporting Actress for Madeline Kahn.
I think it's funny how Cloris Leachman got like top billing for this and not like Teri Garr.
Yeah, there's accolades all over this depending on the awards. Yeah. It's really interesting. I've never quite seen anything like it. It's like at the different awards, it's always a different actor or a different segment of a technical award. It's interesting.
At the Saturn Awards, it really cleaned up, though. It won Best Horror Film, Best Supporting Actor, Best Director, Best Makeup, Best Set Direction.
Notably, Marty Feldman's performance as Igor won him the very first Saturn Award for Best Supporting Actor.
Oh my God.
That's a
Look
fun
at you,
fact
Marty.
there. Mm-hmm. At the Hugo Awards, it won Best Dramatic Presentation. And of course, that year it was nominated against Flash Gordon, Phantom of the Paradise, The Questor Tapes, and Zardoz.
Which apparently I have to watch.
Apparently I have to watch too. Like I haven't seen Lady Hawk or Zardoz, and I want to see, although I'm kind of curious about what the Questor Tapes are.
I've never heard of that.
I think Phantom of the Paradise is on our list already. And I was like surprised because I thought Flash Gordon, I thought this was too early of a year for that. I thought it was like 1980. But I guess not.
I don't know when that came out.
Apparently 1974.
I think Flesh Gordon came out afterward, though.
Flesh Gordon.
The AFI could not leave this off lists, and it placed number 13 on its 100 Years, 100 Laughs.
And 100 Years, 100 Songs, putting on the Ritz, was put at number 989.
If you're blue and you don't know where to go to, why don't you go where fashion sits?
Because we're going to go over the cast.
Talk about the cast. Okay.
I was waiting for you to make a natural segue.
There it is.
Thank you. So obviously we've got Gene Wilder as Dr. Frederick Frankenstein, the grandson of Victor Frankenstein. Obviously he's from The Producers. So that's where he originally was with Mel Brooks.
Yep.
And of course, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was somewhere in there. And then of course, most recently with Blazing Saddles, which was right before this.
That's right. I love me some Gene Wilder very, very much. For all the films that you talked about, probably Willy Wonka I like the most because it's very, very horror adjacent. And he was in this 1980s, also very horror adjacent movie called Haunted Honeymoon that starred his wife, Gilda Radner, and Dom DeLuise in drag. And I
love the DeLuise family.
I just fucking loved that movie when I was small and watched it all of the time. So Gene Wilder will always hold a place in my heart that is very, very special.
Interestingly, I was looking at his filmography, and he just is not the most prolific actor. He's known for these huge roles. Maybe the problem was that he was just known for these gigantic movies that came out, and he couldn't get away from those roles, and everything else was just based on these.
I feel like he was, I mean, and I may be completely making this up. I shouldn't just speak about things that I don't know, but I feel like I've heard or read somewhere that he was kind of reclusive and quiet and kept to himself. And then, Gilda Radner died far too early in her life. Yeah. And I think that really, really affected him. And the thing is about like, he has these huge roles that he's well known for, and he didn't have to do a whole lot in between. He did other things, but like,
well, they were all kind of collected into like this 5-year span.
Yeah. And so I feel like personally he may have had some demons like most funny people do sometimes. And
well, he made some bit appearances like I memorably on Will and Grace. Yeah. He had like a season-long recurring appearance, and I really liked him in that.
Wasn't he like Will's boss or something like that?
But yeah, like Boss's Boss, like original partner or something.
Yeah. He was funny on that show. He's always good.
Yeah.
And I think like he was one of the reasons that I was most excited to see this movie, because I like Gene Wilder, and I feel like whenever I see him in something, I usually laugh.
He's always
hard.
good.
And, and he didn't disappoint. I thought that he was great in this movie.
No, and he has a certain way of screaming that
I feel like I copy Gene Wilder in his screamy moments, especially when I'm trying to be comedically angry at work or something like that. I mean, he's influential in my own life.
Next up, we've got Peter Boyle as the monster, which of course is made from the abnormal brain. And I didn't remember him from much except for like he's been in a lot of things, right? A lot of TVs too. Like he award-winning role as Raymond's father on Everybody Loves Raymond. And then of course, I'm glad this came up because one of our top 10, or I guess top 13 or whatever we did episodes of X-Files was Everybody Loves Clyde Bruckman, and he played the titular Clyde Bruckman.
And that was such a good episode.
So good.
I loved it so much.
It was like a psychic that kind of knows his own fate, per se.
It was a really good episode. And Peter Boyle was great in that, and like I have seen a handful.
He got an Emmy for it too.
I remember. I think we talked about that on that episode. I've seen a handful of episodes of Everyone Loves Raymond, and he's good in that, curmudgeonly, and I think he's good in this movie because he has a mostly silent role, right? and does have some really memorable moments, but he's given this really like silent comedic performance, and it's just good and it works.
Yeah. Next we got Marty Feldman as Igor, the hunchback servant of Victor Frankenstein. Well, not really Victor Frankenstein, who works with Frederick. So the role was specifically written for Marty Feldman, and he added the comic twist to his character by swapping which side the hump was on. And when Dr. Frankenstein asked about it, Igor replies simply, "What hump?" Which is a famous line. And Wilder wrote this role specifically for Feldman. It wasn't even like Mel Brooks; it was Wilder.
I have never heard of this person in my life, and that's shocking to me because I tend to at least if I haven't seen people in films and know who they are, if they're famous, and clearly he was, but
mostly in comedies and TV and stuff. Yeah.
My God, did he steal this fucking movie out from everybody else?
Oh, yeah.
I was kind of watching this for the first time, was so floored by Marty Feldman's performance. I think he got some of the best laughs, and he just seemed really committed to his character. Mm-hmm. And it was just fucking enjoyable to watch him do this. And I was it was to me some of the best parts of the movie were any of Igor's antics and lines. And
and it's one of those surprising things from the original Dracula, and then most recently with Dracula Dead and Loving It, is the role of Renfield that we that steals the show, and this is no exception. The Igor character is
it's just so funny, and it fucking works. And
if I was going to get a sequel, I would ask for one starring him. Really.
Yeah, I would love a complete Igor movie, And the thing is,
and Cloris Leachman.
Cloris Leachman was, and still is for me, a national treasure.
Well, all of these people are dead. All of them.
I know. It makes me sad though.
But she played Frau Blücher. Yeah, the housekeeper of the Frankenstein estate. She's known for The Last Picture Show, High Anxiety later on, which we might watch for Patreon. Yeah. The Muppet Movie, History of the World Part 1, also, of course, with Mel Brooks, and shit tons of others, obviously.
Yeah.
She was on The Mary Tyler Moore Show. She had a spinoff from that called Phyllis. She won many accolades, including 8 Primetime Emmy Awards from 22 nominations, making her the most nominated, and along with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, most awarded performer in Emmy history.
That's incredible. Cloris Leachman is so fucking funny, and she's great in this movie too. I feel like those two characters I think are just really good. Someone else who fully committed to her role in this, and I think she does that any time that she's in something, and so she was nominated for the Academy Award for Last Picture Show. If she didn't win, I can't remember, but I mean, that's dramatic.
She's an Oscar winner as well. Mm-hmm. But one of my favorite gags in the whole movie, maybe my favorite gag as far as just a scene, is her going backwards up the stairs playing the violin for emphasis.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And she's playing at a serious car accident, which is, of course, what makes it funny.
That's right.
It's the Leslie Nielsen camp of playing at a serious car accident.
And it works for her. I think one of the parts that I laughed the most at was when she had those unlit candles, and she told them, she was stay close to the candles. The stairs could be treacherous, And I'm just this is fucking amazing.
Yeah.
So always amazing.
Speaking of amazing, and kind of a thankless job is Teri Garr as Inga, the young woman who becomes Frederick's assistant. And she was known for, in Francis Ford Coppola's The Conversation, which happened a little earlier. And then Close Encounters of the Third Kind, The Black Stallion, Tootsie, Mr. Mom, Dumb and Dumber. So she's been in a shit ton. Also in TV, 46 episodes of The Sonny and Cher Show.
Weird.
2 episodes of MASH, a bunch of other TV.
Teri Garr is I forgot how fucking beautiful she was until you're watching this movie, and she was also quite good in this. I think all the performances in this movie are really excellent.
She's a comedic actress in her own right.
She is. She got the most guffawing laughter from me from this movie, because I appreciate wordplay, and this movie has a lot of innuendo and entendre, but she wakes up Gene Wilder's character Frankenstein, and she was like, "Doctor, wake up, you're having a nightmare." And I was just like, that nightmare. That was the funniest part of that movie.
Yeah.
To me.
You always left the most obvious stupid shit.
Because I love obvious stupid shit, I like
My favorite time of day is night.
see, and I just like really funny wordplay. It just makes me laugh so much, and it's all about delivery too, though. You know, because she has that serious look on her face, and she's like Nachtmare, and I'm like that right there, y'all.
Yeah. Then we've got Kenneth Mars as Inspector Kemp, one-eyed police inspector with a prosthetic arm. He was in a bunch of comedies and TV, British, I think. Don't know really much about him from there. We may have to segue directly into Madeline Kahn, who this is not her best role. Like I kept wanting more, more of her and maybe more for her to do. She does as much as she can, but she played Elizabeth Frederick's, fiance who comes in as a kind of a foil, right? Later on. She, of course, is in Clue, our favorite role in Clue.
Oh, my God.
And is also in High Anxiety, which we'll discuss in Patreon probably, and then History of the World Part 1 as well. And then, of course, Oscar-nominated performances in Paper Moon and Blazing Saddles.
She's really good in Blazing Saddles. And, I mean, it's not my favorite Mel Brooks movie, but, like, I think that she's really good in it. And but it's one of those, like, rare, like, comedic Oscar-nominated performances. And Madeline Kahn is just a joy to see on screen no matter what.
Yeah.
And she's especially good in Clue.
Yeah. Lastly, I have written down Gene Hackman, who I did not realize was in this. I had completely forgotten. And he played Harold the Blind Man, who Frankenstein meets out on the wilds when he escapes. Again, with the conversation, right? So there's some holdover with Teri Garr. And I do eventually want to deep dive into the conversation. Mm-hmm. And I think that is really good, like political thriller about paranoia and surveillance. One of the very first. It's one of Francis Ford Coppola's best. It's one of the best uses of sound. I think it invented the Oscar for sound, or created the invention of, or inspired the award, if you will. And later on, there's a kind of one of the only things I can think of where this happened, where there was another big blockbuster movie that is a sequel that no one knows is a sequel to it, which is Will Smith's, like 20, 30 years later, movie Enemy of the State.
I have never seen Enemy of the State. Is Gene Hackman in that?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Shows up, and it's alluded that he's the same character from The Conversation.
Oh my God.
Which is also just like everything from Enemy of the State, of course, is like a continuation, but just with like all of the newest visual technologies with satellite and surveillance cameras and all that stuff.
So we have a built-in double feature there.
Yes, we do.
Oh my God.
And I really want to talk about, obviously Enemy of the State is not like art, like Francis Ford Coppola's, like The Conversation is in a way, but it is, it's still a good movie for sure.
I have never seen that.
Have you never seen The Conversation?
No.
Or Enemy of the State?
Oh, no, I haven't seen either one of them.
Definitely a film school study. Almost every film school is going to make you watch The Conversation, at least for sound.
I'm almost always down for Coppola. So,
yeah. Anyway, so obviously in The Conversation, he did The French Connection, Bonnie and Clyde. Sorry, Gene, you had to work with that bitch. He was also good friends with Gene Wilder, who reportedly did it for free, for scale, because Gene Wilder got him the job here.
Oh. I didn't know that Gene Hackman was in this movie either, and but he's recognizable even through like the wig and beard.
Because he can't be anything but Gene Hackman.
Yes, and he sounds like Gene Hackman.
He looks like Gene Hackman.
And so I had a moment of like sadness for his recent passing, and because of just like the oddness surrounding it. But
yeah, the rat-infested, disease-ridden, bloated corpses. Yeah,
it's just sad to see like what happens to people. So this did not sound sincere, but I meant it.
Same. Background. Let's talk about the background of the movie.
Okay.
So obviously tune into last week's episode on Dracula Dead and Loving It for a lot of the background and information on Mel Brooks. I know this is out of order. We should have done that here, but we could not find the movie streaming. We had to order the Blu-ray.
Does that make any sense to you at all?
No.
I
someone
feel
lost the right. Someone fucked up and lost the right, you know?
That's obviously what happened, but like that's so unfathomable to me. I feel like this has to be like the most popular Mel Brooks movie. And I don't know why it's not streaming anywhere other than that. It just seems like if people are looking for something from Mel Brooks to watch, I feel like they would be picking this or Blazing Saddles probably. And like, it's just so strange that we had to do this out of order because we had to order a physical copy of it. y'all.
Yeah, the fact that I can watch like George Lucas's lawyer's cousin's dog's scrotum's project on the Criterion channel, and I can't find Young Frankenstein, like
We had to wait 24 hours for it to be delivered.
I had to give Jeff Bezos more money.
God.
Fuck that.
So he could continue to send fucking Katy Perry into space.
Fuck. That's a conversation for Shooting the Flames.
We're going to have it.
You know who else I want to shoot in space? That's a whole conversation. So, I mean, up to this point, Mel Brooks had already directed The Producers, The 12 Chairs, Blazing Saddles. You know, and he went on after this with the success, obviously, to go and do other genre parodies, including Silent Movie, which is kind of reminiscent of Scary Movie later on, right? And then, of course, High Anxiety, which, again, we may be doing on Patreon, so stay tuned. Spaceballs with sci-fi, Robin Hood with adventure, right? And then, of course, finally Dracula, Dead and Loving It.
It's back to horror.
Mm-hmm. Full circle. I'm wondering why he didn't decide to... I think he decided... I just answered my own question. Because this one was supposed to be like the classic movies. What he was trying to do is do more like the 70s Hammer films, 60s,
Right.
70s. Like, so he was trying to make it that kind of like TV lit... ultra saturated, like Christopher Lee era.
Even the blood had a certain kind of quality to it that was reminiscent of that. And which leads me to say something that we probably talked about in Dracula Dead and Loving It. Well, I know we did, is that what Mel Brooks is best at is being a structuralist and really understands genre of film and filmmaking itself, right? And so I think that he does this very, very well because he just really understands like what makes these things fit into certain genres and has an appreciation for all the movies that fit into it and does it so well, both as a writer and a director.
I feel like it's really intentional, and he does have a really, really strong comedic body of work.
Yeah, he
Whereas
does.
Roger Ebert only just has a body.
Best quote ever.
From last episode. Check it out. Meanwhile, they're both bodies now. So in 2010, there's an interview with the Los Angeles Times where Mel Brooks discussed how the film actually came about. He said, quote, "I was in the middle of shooting the last few weeks of Blazing Saddles somewhere in the Antelope Valley, and Gene Wilder and I were having a cup of coffee. And he said, I have this idea that there could be another Frankenstein. And I said, not another. We've had son of, cousin of, brother of. We don't need another Frankenstein. His idea was very simple. What if the grandson of Dr. Frankenstein wanted nothing to do with the family whatsoever? He was ashamed of those wackos. I said, that's funny.
Mm-hmm.
So little by little, every night, Gene and I met at his bungalow at the Bel Air Hotel. We ordered a pot of Earl Grey tea, coupled with a container of cream and a small kettle of brown sugar cubes. To go with it, we had a pack of British digestive biscuits. And step by step, ever so cautiously, we proceeded on a dark, narrow, twisting path to an eventual screenplay in which good sense and caution are thrown out the window and madness ensues.
To be a fly on a wall.
Yeah.
In the Bel Air bungalow.
Why digestions? Bel Air bungalow.
Digestive biscuits.
I just didn't, I would never, that was not on my bingo.
No, I would assume they'd be drinking some sort of whiskey or something like that.
Yeah, well, this is not a John Carpenter situation, I guess.
No, we can hear the ice clanking it.
Yeah. So principal photography began in February 1974 and wrapped May 1974. And to recreate the visual style of the Universal horror films, Brooks shot in black and white, of course, against the wishes of the studio, employed vintage-style opening credits, used wipes and irises for scene transitions, and even used the original Kenneth Strickfaden lab equipment from the original 1931 Frankenstein.
And that's what this movie does so well.
The sets are actually quite good in this.
Yeah. And
quite like modern good.
And I think we said something very similar about Dracula Dead and Loving It, like staircases and all. I mean, like watching this movie is very much like watching something from Universal's catalog.
It felt like the Dark Old House or something.
It really did. You know, it's like he was channeling his inner James Whale to make this comedy film. And that's where I think this movie like succeeds so well, is that it feels like you're watching one of those movies, and you need to feel that way when watching a spoof.
Yeah.
And the thing is that like while watching this movie, I don't know if I was expecting something like ridiculously silly, you know, but it's not. It's a very, very dry, witty kind of movie. And it's not without its chuckles, you know what I mean? But I didn't just like guffaw with laughter every 5
There's
seconds.
definitely slapstick.
Yeah. But like, I think it's smart, you know, and I think that's a good thing. But, something that I was talking about earlier is that like, while this movie is very, very popular and I feel like a lot of people watch it, I don't know that it has a timeless quality to it. You know, it feels very much a product of like the 1970s to me, even though it's parodying something from the 30s. And I don't know, but that it makes it good. It makes it fun to watch just because it's so very fucking similar to Frankenstein.
Yeah, I think that humor kind of persisted in like the innocence of like, especially as things kind of retracted after the Reagan Revolution and all that, with like morals and like everything else, and like the innuendo that had to kind of continue or even double down in the 80s and 90s. So when I saw this for the first time in the 90s, I thought it was the most hilarious thing.
Yeah.
I thought it was insanely, you know, well thought and forward and everything. And I just thought it was great. But now, since we've gone so much further, right, with both horror and comedy, you know, it doesn't work as well.
It seems very tame.
It
right?
does,
You know,
yes.
and and I don't think that's bad because I feel like I missed out.
I think it now relies a lot on your familiarity with those classic films and your appreciation and patience for more of a slow burn comedy.
Yeah.
That is still kind of obvious, you know, is not like, I kept wishing for it to be a little bit more witty or edgy where I'd feel smart listening to it, or just more of a laugh a minute like Airplane.
Yeah.
You know, because Airplane has plenty of wordplay stuff, but also slapstick and also all these other kinds of comedy where they stick to the bit and they just like, it's constantly bit after bit after bit. And this is not that. And that's just not Mel Brooks either.
No, it's not. I mean,
It's not like Monty Python either. He's like something in the middle, you know?
yeah. I mean, we had the same conversation about Dracula Dead and Loving It, is that like we're kind of like used to getting our spoof comedy or even comedy in general, sometimes like a laugh a minute, like in your face, constant comedy. And Mel Brooks has a story to tell always.
Yeah. And I also thought a lot of this stuff was newer. Parody like this was newer. Wasn't really as much of a thing as it is today.
Right.
You know, we have the hindsight of like dozens of movies that have been famous parodies, you know, and farces, right? And then also breaking the fourth wall. That was really, really new and weird, right? And now I think we're going to talk about a little bit with the fun facts, some of that fourth wall breaking, how they think about it. But how I think about it is when they literally do, when they have an actor literally looking at the camera and talking to the audience. And they do that. Igor does that.
He does.
Several times. And that kind of bothered me in this because I'm just like, it's kind of trite now.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to say.
If you're not doing it like with a I don't know, like a reach around like fucking Deadpool does. You know, Deadpool like killed all you know, fourth wall breaks for the end of time, I think.
Well, and shows like The Office and whatnot, I feel like it's just expected now and not something that's out of the ordinary, you know, and like something like back in the day when this was made, or even like Ferris Bueller's Day Off from the 80s, you know, it was unexpected types of comedy.
It's just like non-diegetic fourth wall breaks are just kind of lame now.
Yep. It's trite. I mean, it's exactly what you said. It's overdone. But I really feel like I missed out on this movie because the people that I know who love this, like they think back of it fondly in their childhood. Like, this is one of my favorite movies from my childhood.
They definitely have a nostalgia lens, or as we like to say, nostalgia boner for it.
They definitely have a boner for this. And I don't. This is the first time I've seen it, but I can't help but think that I would have liked it so much more had I watched this like in my like preteen days
you
or
would have
something.
loved it, yeah.
Yeah. So then it's not a bad movie, but
No.
So is Young Frankenstein a horror movie though?
Yeah. I mean, it's comedy first, obviously, but it's made to parody and, you know, in kind of a love letter to horror. It's not, it's laughing with it rather than at it.
That's right. It really does have some sort of appreciation for what came before. And I think that good spoofs do that.
And I think that's something that Mel Brooks is good at.
Yeah. Very,
He doesn't really punch down ever.
No. Were you scared while watching Young Frankenstein?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. No, you're not supposed to be. What did you rate Young Frankenstein out of 5 stars?
I gave it a 4. I ran it through scans.
So did I.
And what's interesting to me is usually scans gives me points like lower or higher, but usually right on where I'm thinking. It just kind of helps me kind of systemically rate things kind of the same across the board. So they're all by the same kind of, attributes, right? Like look and feel and sound and pacing and writing and blah, 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 right? So I did this and it's like everything's just kind of good, right? And then when that happens and then you say, is this important? Yes. It kind of brought it up to a 4. It's just like the upper side of beige to me. It's just like good across the board. And it's like that danger of having Rotten Tomatoes where everyone's just like, yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's okay. That could be 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, right? So kind of the same thing is happening here. Everything is done so competently, so well. I don't really have any kind of problem with it. I just didn't enjoy it as much as I feel like I should have. And that could be the realm of subjectivity. I don't know. But I rated it a 4 because that's what the math said. To me, like if I was like to give this a rating out of my soul or something, it would be like more like a 3, 3.5.
I ran it through scans as well. And it told me to give it 4.5 stars.
Yep, me too, actually.
And I was just
I
like,
went down.
Yeah, so did I. I was like, no. I was like, that scans, but does it though? And so like it's too hard for me to
It's one of those things. It's more important than it is good at this point.
100%, because it got down to that last question. And I was like, yes, this movie is very, very important for a number of reasons, a myriad.
Yeah.
And I was just like, but it's not 4.5. I think that the performances are great, and that's what I marked it. And I think that like the look and feel of this movie is also great because it's doing its job and it's an important movie. But it's too hard for me to withdraw some of my subjectivity and my emotion out of it. And while I think it's very important and that factored into my rating, I just could not give it any higher than that.
Yep. Same.
And I think that's still a very good rating for this movie.
Agreed.
So who's the hottest guy in Young Frankenstein?
I'm gonna have to say that it's Mr. Gene Wilder.
Yeah, I mean Slim Pickens,
really.
But I mean he's playing, someone who has quite a bit of sex in this movie or wants to have a lot of sex, and I don't know if it's like he's an attractive man.
Yeah.
Do you have some fun facts for me?
Oh, I do.
Oh.
Yeah, so the film's main music cue is often associated with the dramatic chipmunk meme. Most don't realize this is the film that it came from. So when the music opens, this thing goes, dun, dun, dun. Both Matt and I started laughing, but you and Adam did not react at all.
I didn't get it.
And so Matt and I were like, oh, they didn't, yeah. So anyway, I have a link here. If you ever go into the doc, I could put it in the show notes too, but it's the chipmunk turning around dramatically. And that's even been parodied on like South Park and stuff.
I feel like I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you've seen it.
Yeah.
And it's been a GIF or whatever. It's really like the original YouTube memes where it was actually sound and video,
Okay. I was wondering why.
People have used it for dramatic music and like no one knows where this originally came from. It comes from Young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Igor's line, "Walk This Way," in the film inspired the song of the same name by Aerosmith. So according to Gene Wilder, the joke was added while shooting the scene by Mel Brooks, inspired by the old talcum powder joke. So a partially contradictory account appears in I, Marty, Feldman's posthumously published autobiography. Feldman recalls spontaneously doing the walk this way shtick to make his colleagues laugh, with Brooks then insisting, despite Wilder and Feldman's reservations, that it stay in the film.
Okay. I think that's weird that it inspired an Aerosmith song.
Yeah.
But
random.
It is super, super fucking random. But I really kind of want to read this autobiography now. I don't know. And I also want to seek out more of this man's work.
Walk this way, talk this way. Like it's trying to say it's like this way and not that way. I don't know. Anyway, it's the play on words again. Sorry. In one of the scenes of a village assembly, one of the authority figures says that he already knows what Frankenstein is up to based on the 5 previous experiences. This is a reference, of course, to the first 5 Universal films. In a Gene Wilder DVD interview, he says the film is based on Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, Son of Frankenstein, and The Ghost of Frankenstein from 1942. So, yeah.
Okay.
They're directly fourth wall breaking with that a little bit. This has happened 5 times before. Brooks and Wilder disagreed over the sequence where Frankenstein and his creation performed Puttin' on the Ritz, as they should. Brooks felt it was too silly to have the monster sing and dance, but eventually yielded to Wilder's arguments.
And it turned out to be one of the most like memorable parts of this movie. So much so that like everybody, whether you've seen this movie or not, knows that is in this film.
Yeah.
And I think that it's that kind of like universal knowledge that makes the moment not as funny as maybe it was back in 1974.
Agree. Unlike any of his other films, Brooks does not appear on screen in a significant role in Young Frankenstein, though he recorded several voice parts like the wolf howling and the cat screeching. So in 2002, Brooks explained why. He said, quote, "I wasn't allowed to be in it. That was the deal Gene Wilder had. He said, if you're not in it, I'll do it. He said, you have a way of breaking the fourth wall, whether you want to or not. I just want to keep it. I don't want too much to be, a wink at the audience. I love the script. He wrote the script with me. That was the deal. So I wasn't in it and he did it."
Wow.
So he thought it pulls people out. He's too recognizable. They know he's the director.
Yeah.
Hitchcock has his cameos, but it's never in an important moment. You know what I mean? But he actually has a lot of speaking lines generally, just like in Dracula Dead and Loving It. Yep. He was Van Helsing, right? And so I think he does a good job, and it doesn't take away from the movie. You're watching a fucking parody. I don't think it would have hurt anything to have Mel Brooks in this.
I don't either, but what would he have played? Like Igor?
I don't know. But that would have been taken away from...
We would have been bereft of Marty.
Bereft. A hutch to treble of some wild thing. Jesus.
I had to read Dickensian.
So there's an alternate ending.
Okay.
Yeah. So instead of ending with the happily ever after of the monster and Elizabeth together, with the monster now sophisticated and speaking perfectly, the original ending was going to lean way darker and actually a bit sadder. So the plan was the monster dies at the end after defending Frankenstein, but Frankenstein successfully transfers part of his own life force into the monster, not necessarily his brain, giving him a temporary sentience, enough for the monster to speak intelligently and thank Frankenstein for his life. The idea was to mirror the Bride of Frankenstein's sadness. The monster saying something like, "I was loved for a moment." Then the monster would collapse permanently, leaving Frankenstein devastated but proud of his success in humanizing the creature. Wilder apparently wrote this version with a very bittersweet, almost gothic horror tone, still comedic, but much more aligned with the tragic endings of the classic Universal monster films, and I'm glad they didn't do it.
Yeah, it needs to have this like sort of meet cute kind of ending. That's way more comedic, because that's what makes comedy. Comedy is the end of things, right? Like tragedies always end with this, and comedies always end with weddings.
Unless you have Jack Black saying the line, "'Twas beauty that killed the beast."
Jack Black shouldn't be allowed to make things that are not comedy.
Try again, Peter Jackson.
I know. Well, at this point, he's only making Minecraft movies, so.
Oh my God, what? Did he direct that? No, he didn't.
No, he's in it.
Peter Jackson? Oh, sorry.
So I was talking about Jack Black.
Jack Black.
We're talking about two different people from the same film. Those were fun, and I'm super glad we did not have that alternate ending. But I feel like that's the most fun fact you've had in a while.
That said, Peter Jackson has a body of work, and I just, have a body.
I think that just about wraps up our conversation on Young Frankenstein, or Frankenstein. As always, we want to know what you think about this film and our conversation about it, and perhaps how you pronounce that word. Find us on social media at The Film Flamers on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, all the places.
You can email us at tiredqueens@filmflamers.com or call our hotline at
972-666-7733.
Oh, call our hotline and woof at our schwanz.
Roll and say hey. Roll and say hey. Goofy.
What knockers?
Also a memorable line from that movie. That wraps up Comedy Month over on the main feed. But like we've referred to several many times in this episode, head over to patreon.com/thefilmflamers to join the family and get this month's bonus episode, more than likely on Mel Brooks's High Anxiety, his spoof of Hitchcockian thrillers.
That's right. And then I think that's going to be a little bit of a precursor to what we're calling Hitchcocktober.
Hitchcocktober.
Right. Hitchcocktober is a 2025 gift to our listeners, where we'll finally be talking about things like Rear Window and The Burbs.
Or something.
Wait, The Birds.
Although I do want to talk about The Burbs.
Maybe we'll do The Burbs on Patreon.
This is also kind of a precursor to Pride Month, where, more than likely, we will be covering these actual James Whale films that this movie parodies so well, and all the gay undertones found with it.
That's right. God, it's a chock-full year.
Yeah, so many things.
We're going to start Friday the 13th this year. My God.
And we're not even halfway through
the places we'll go.
The places you'll see, listeners. The places you'll hear. Well, Chris.
Well, Robert.
Until all those months, many months away, I think we should go off and have some sweet dreams.
Oh, I should have been like, call our hotline and put on the Ritz.
Put me on the Ritz. Comment on my knockers. Those knockers look
like a spread you on a Ritz cracker.
They look completely unused and not dusty and like brand new to that castle.
The knockers?
Yeah.
Oh.
They look pristine.
I thought you were talking about your knockers. I think they're not pristine, buddy.
My knockers have seen better days.
Haven't we all?